Easy Toronto crew. It's your boy John Rolodex from all the way out west. Coming to you from my, I guess, starting to become an annual thing. Guest mix for The Prophecy on CIUT. Big shout out to the crew for having me once again. This is my 4th consecutive and 10th, maybe 15th time being on the show over the last 3 decades. And it's always an honor. You got me for the first hour, Valiant in the second hour with an interview from DJ Flight. Really looking forward to that. I'll be drawing all kinds of brand new drum and bass. And then in the last 15, rolling out some jungle. Try to keep the talking to a minimum. Watch the socials for track listings. Let's roll.
The world is falling
Into this one, sounds of Drelio. The track is called Upside Down into Infinity. Look out for this one forthcoming on Rebel Music. Before this, Workforce from his Nothing Is Sacred album. That one's called Falling Down, featuring Tyler Daly. And kicking things off, another one forthcoming on Rebel Music. Creatures. Had Enough.
Recently out on Metalheads, sounds of Beta 2. The track is called White Dahlia. Before that, Inner Terrain, also on Rebel Music.
Track's called Dark Rose and it dropped a couple weeks ago. Fantastic EP. Be sure to check that out.
Relax. Let your mind go blank.
Relax. Let your mind go blank. Relax. Let your mind go blank.
Relax. Let your mind go blank.
Relax. Let your mind go blank.
Relax. Let your mind go blank. Relax. Let your mind blank.
Track before this one, yours truly, John Rolodex. The track called Blank. You can catch that on an EP later this year on the Librarians label, Third Chapter. And the track in the background Red Army with a track called Golova. This is on a double EP on his label that dropped earlier this week. The label's called Armory, and you can grab that on his Bandcamp right now. Slapping EP. This one, Grimesy and Skinny, with a track called The Warrior. This one will be dropping in a few weeks on Machinist Music as part of our 15 years celebration. Absolutely blazing Reese bassline, if you're into that sort of thing.
I would change freedom of thought. A lot of people, they don't really think freely. They think of really small boxes, so we end up in the same place we've been the whole time. But if people thought really freely, then we'd have less judgmental people, less racist people, less offensive situations. I would change freedom of thought. I'd make sure people thought more freely for themselves.
Another forthcoming Machinist music track. This one from one of the hardest working guys in the game right now, Conrad Subs. The track is called Beam, and you can catch this one later in the year. Before that, another from Workforce's new album. That one's called Really Small Boxes. This one out recently on Machinist. Sounds of Hyperfocus. Track is called Nothing. And before that, another forthcoming Rebel music. That's Nemi with a track called Wrong Science. I'm John Rolodex, and you're listening to The Prophecy on CIUT. also out recently on Machinist. Sounds a new flow with a track called Draw. Title track of his very excellent EP. Before that, Serpent, Come Cross. And before that, a Metalheadz classic, Doc Scott, Swarm. Taking you down deep underwater. Red Army once again, this time alongside Homemade Weapons. The track is called Hyperboles. Before that, an old friend of mine, Fuge, the track called Stricken. And before that, a little bit of unreleased Inside Man. The track is called Rhythm Code. This is The Prophecy on CIUT. I'm John Rolodex.
There is a hidden world.
As I said in the intro, I'm not going to bother with track titles and all that in this section. Just going to have a little fun, dropping the tempo, a little bit of jungle music for you. But I should mention, track before this one, John B and Lamaduza, Ventilate, absolute banger, recently out on Metalheads. You already know.
What's going on here? Is this some kind of...
This behavior is undignified.
About the future. Get a load of me. About the future.
So fresh and so clean. Don't you think I'm so sexy? It's up on this side and the other side of the equator.
Into like different plants and turnaround times and all that kind of stuff.
So what does seem to be the average turnaround time for vinyl these days on your side of the pond anyway?
I wouldn't say there's an average. I guess at this time of year it's longer because of Record Store Day, but I didn't realise how much longer it would be. Like when I submitted masters and lacquers so they could develop the stamper and run a few test presses, that was before Christmas, and so I thought that we were going to have a fast turnaround, and like I was aiming for like February release. A lot of plants say that they do a 10 to 14 week turnaround. That's kind of allowing for a couple of weeks to drift off schedule. Some say that they're like 8 to 10 weeks, but it never is.
I mean, that's an improvement from what it used to be a couple of years ago. I mean, people were telling me that they had nightmare scenarios where they had to do things 6 to 12 months in advance because it was that long of a wait. So I guess it's an improvement. Is every release that you're doing on Play Music on vinyl these days, or are you kind of mixing it up?
I will do. I think it depends on the artist. I mean, you can press smaller runs depending on their profile, how many listeners they've got. But I'm kind of, because it was so long in between the last releases and then coming back last year with Nectax, so much has changed, and even though I'm at a better level profile wise for myself, I wasn't sure if it would take like a really long time for people to pick up on the label name and like just the fact that I'm getting back out there with it again. But yeah, Nectax did all right. But yeah, I'm just going to judge it release by release. I think there are a couple of people that I'm speaking to at the moment about their tracks that probably will end up being digital only releases unless I can pair them up with someone who's a bit more established, kind of keeping along a similar vein as to the original releases and like help support newer names. So yeah, I'll just take it release by release, I think.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but you resurrected the label after what's it been about? Was it 14 years?
Yeah.
Obviously a very long gap. What made you decide to bring the label back?
It was something that I'd had in the back of my mind for a long time. I mean, for a while. Well, it wasn't like I took the decision to stop. It just kind of did. And I went through like a bad, like lack of finances stage. That's when I got the job and started working for the Prison Radio charity. I'd been working in black market part-time. My DJ bookings weren't going as well as I would have liked them to. So I kind of had in the back of my mind that eventually, if my profile grew to a level that I was happy with, and I felt like I could support producers and their art and their music properly again, then I would bring it back. But yeah, for a long time it was just kind of out of sight, out of mind. But people would ask me every so often. For a little while it was like quite regular, people saying, oh, when are you going to bring the label back, when are you going to bring it back? And then my peers, some of them saying, oh, you should bring it back, like especially since Marcus passed, and then Spirit passing, there's a bit of a gap in their sound and what Solar used to do, and the way the music has evolved and how we've seen things change over the last few years. It's become, I guess, the deeper stuff has become even more of a niche, but there is room for there to be a little bit more substance, less style over substance, but you can still marry the two, like have really nice artwork along with incredible music. Like the whole package is really important. So I guess since events came back post-COVID lockdowns, I kind of just everything was really taken off. Like I was busy every weekend, playing out loads of places, traveling a lot again, playing abroad. I eventually left my radio producer job. I went on sabbatical for 2 years after my dad passed, made the BBC doc in that time, and then just didn't go back because I didn't want to go back into the prison. I just didn't want to work in prisons again. And I just thought, okay, well, now's the right time to do it.
You know, since there's been such a resurgence in, I don't want to say a resurgence in vinyl, there's been an expansion of the niche of vinyl, right? Especially when it comes to home listenership and stuff like that. And so you're starting to see labels do things with like lathe cutting and stuff like that. What is your opinion on that kind of stuff? And I want to piggyback on that for a minute because, like, for instance, for me, I'm actually putting out some of my older tunes through Elastic Stage, which is like a vinyl on demand service. And I found actually in my research, because I was trying to find out what the hell they actually do, it is lathe cutting. It's just to a different standard and it's much more automated so that it's consistent. But in your experience, how does lathe cutting vinyl perform? I know it's actually physically a slightly different material than vinyl that we usually buy at the stores.
To be honest, I haven't experienced it personally, as in having anything cut in that kind of scenario or situation. I mean, I still buy vinyl sometimes, but I actually bought some drum and bass records the other week actually for a gig, an all vinyl set that I was booked for. Like the whole night is all vinyl. They're trying to like take it back to basics, take it back to the beginning style. So I bought some recent releases for that. But generally, when I buy vinyl, it tends to be like dub reggae, rockers, like 7s, 10s, a bit of jazz, the odd soul album, things like that. Yeah, so I haven't actually had anything cut or played anything that's been lathe cut. I mean, it's really cool. Like, for years, since I first started working in a record shop when I was like 19, I think I just turned 19. That was my first quote-unquote industry job. I thought, I would love to own my own record shop one day. I just loved it. I loved being surrounded by music all day. I loved being able to practice my mixing. It was really cool seeing all the different label owners coming in, dropping off their white labels, sale or return. Got to meet a lot of different people. It was just a fun time. And I thought, I like this. And thought the same when I started working in Black Market BM Soho years later. But obviously you have to pair it, like you say, with maybe a coffee shop or bar, maybe offer different wines and have wine tasting, and lathe cuts being one of the other options that you see in these shops. I think if people are properly learning the skill, then it's good. But I also wonder how many people are actually giving like proper high quality cuts, because it's a dying skill. That's why a lot of the plants get blocked up, because there are not many people left, because they're all dying off, getting old and dying without sharing their knowledge. There aren't enough people who truly know like the real science behind the diamonds that are in the lathe cutting heads.
Right.
And so there are quite a few lathes out there that don't have like, excuse me, the really pristine, proper diamonds in their heads. I even remember Dillinger saying it about Music House years ago, that he stopped cutting there because they needed a new head on their lathe. So he started going elsewhere, and then other people started going elsewhere as well, just to get like those sharper tops and mids on their cuts. It's a good thing, and I guess it's helping to reinvigorate the interest. It's the roots of like what we all do, what we've all been doing for years. So it's good that more interest in this side of things, and it's interesting, and people do like to hold something in their hands. They like to own something rather than just downloading digital files all the time. So yeah, it makes it more interesting and enjoyable that way. But yeah, I just hope that people are taking time to properly learn what it is they're doing when they're offering this service.
Quite a bit of the roots of this music that have been kind of slowly, cut away over the years. I was listening to the interview that you did recently, and I can't remember who it was with. The interviewer was talking with you about vinyl, about your changes throughout your career. You're kind of, I think it would be fair to say that maybe you're part of like the sort of, maybe I don't want to say the second generation, but like not right out the gate, but like you kind of started. Yeah. I think when I did, because I think you and I are roughly the same age, and your career has seen a lot of changes that I think coincide with all of the changes, not only within the music industry, but with drum bass in general. You started out in vinyl, and you have made that switch to digital, as almost every other DJ eventually has. You've seen the changes in the industry that the digital revolution has brought. You've seen sort of the music sort of fade away from being at the top of the heap and then come back from that, et cetera, et cetera. So I was very curious as to, because I started emceeing because I couldn't afford to be a DJ, because records cost a lot and the gear cost a lot and stuff like that.
Stamina was in the same boat as well. Stamina MC was the same as well.
Yeah, I remember him saying that, actually. And I just wanted to be part of the music somehow, and I never considered myself a rapper of any kind. But my friends were DJs, and I got to see and talk to a lot of different DJs in terms of like their approach to DJing. Now, obviously, your approach to DJing is going to be very different with vinyl. I don't think a lot of younger people especially understand that it's an extremely inexact science. Obviously there's no sync button, and the closer you get to the hole in the middle of the record, the faster the record is going, almost imperceptibly. And, so there's a lot of like craft involved when it comes to DJing on vinyl. Now that a lot of those variables have been eliminated from DJing, digitally speaking, how has your approach to the actual art of DJing changed?
I'd say it's mainly physically. I still, in that, I mix tunes in quicker than I used to on vinyl. Obviously tunes are much shorter generally now than they were years ago, across the board, so that's kind of enforced a speeding up for everybody. I mean, I've never been a DJ that's kind of been flashy with tricks, or I don't scratch. Sometimes I double drop, but that's not me. That's because I know the music inside out, so I can hear when they're gonna drop at the same time. Sometimes it's a happy accident, but when you know your music inside and out, you can kind of find yourself in this flow state where it just happens naturally. But yeah, I've never been somebody, I guess, like Andy C or AMC or Swift, that would spend loads of time like planning double drops and working them out. I guess with Randall, that it came much more naturally. I don't know how much he practiced at home, but it just felt a lot more fluid. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. His sets felt very natural compared to a lot of the quick mixing DJs. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's mainly physically. It's strange because I still feel, even though I've spent way more time and years DJing digitally, I still feel more comfortable on turntables. And I don't know if it's because it's more tactile, it's bigger, you can see the grooves. Yeah, it just feels nicer to me. Like, it took me I don't know. Sometimes when I play out, because obviously every setup is different as well. Some venues have Pioneer 3000, some have 2000s. You've got all these variables that can get in the way. So sometimes I feel like I'm still kind of, takes me a while to get used to a setup. But yeah, I still feel a bit more comfortable on turntables.
In the vinyl days, I think different DJs had different intentions, and they also drew different elements of enjoyment out of what they were doing. So some DJs really loved the actual craft of mixing, having these long mixes, and their challenge personally was, to keep the beats matched, maybe riding the pitch, whether they're adjusting the plat or not. But it took a lot of enjoyment out of that. There are other DJs obviously who scratched or did different tricks or whatever. Like I said, now that a lot of that is kind of, I don't want to say done for you, but you do have the option to have it done for you if you like. So how has it changed? Like, let's say the personal gratification of DJing for you.
Oh, it hasn't really. As I said, I'm not I've never been a flashy or tricks kind of DJ. I'm not really that technologically minded either. So I only started using Rekordbox quite recently, even though I've been on USBs for a while. I did try Rekordbox a while back, but just couldn't get on with it. I was just like, oh, what is this? Let me just drag and drop the tunes. Like, it's so much quicker and easier. I don't mind scrolling through a list, So I guess, I still play in the same way. It hasn't changed the style of music or the way I put tunes together. I'm still very much the same. I don't make use of cue points. Maybe I should. Somebody who shall remain nameless told me quite recently, oh, you should do that, everybody else is doing it. I'm like, I don't care what everybody else is doing. I like the way I play.
Just makes you want to not do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. If someone says, oh, you should do it like this because everybody else, that will just kick in the stubborn flight, and I'll be like, nah, I'm okay. Yeah, maybe I am a bit too stubborn. I mean, I love the ease of USBs and the convenience and the fact that you can carry around thousands upon thousands of tunes at any one time. Sometimes it does get a bit much. Obviously, everybody that uses Rekordbox will know this. The handy thing is that when you're making new playlists on the fly, but then you can dip into the older ones and see what tunes are there. Because I've never been, or not yet anyway, the type of DJ that has all of the subgenres, because that can just get a bit much for the way my brain works. So what I've been doing is just making new playlists for each set, and then sometimes it will have repeated tunes from previous sets. For quite a while there will always be like tunes that I play in every single set, but I don't necessarily have to have them in the new folder. But in the new folder will be tunes that are brand new, that I maybe haven't listened to as many times as others, but I know that I definitely want to fit it in somewhere. From what I've heard, from the way most people work, my brain's a little different, wired differently, probably, but it works for me.
The idea that Rekordbox and having USBs and thousands of tunes can be overwhelming. I think that there's a certain freedom that actually comes from limitations, because obviously limitations foster ingenuity, foster creativity. And I think that a lot of that is getting lost, especially I think for the younger generation. Obviously I cannot speak for the creative mind state of younger creators. But maybe just because I'm old, the overwhelming nature of that can almost be crippling. I liken it to, I do illustration on the side, and you can spend just forever looking for reference images and getting caught up in those rabbit holes, and it's almost like there's just too much. It can inhibit your creativity. Can inhibit your creativity to such a degree that I find it almost scary in a way.
Yeah, but like going back to years gone by, that's what made people stand out more as well, I guess. You think that people should be able to stand out more now because there is so much more music on offer and to listen to and kind of dig into. But the lack of options of how you could play a set years ago, obviously vinyl being the only thing before even burning CDs became a thing. And depending on how much money you earned or didn't earn, that would dictate how many records you could buy or how many dub plates you could go and cut. So you really had to be careful and quite. I guess you had to be quite single-minded about what you wanted to play and how you wanted to represent yourself and the music. And I know Storm has said it like over the years about me, that when I was first giving them my mixtapes, I gave them copies of my first 3, and one of the first things that they noticed was that I was making use of B-sides. And now with the way my taste is, quite often I would prefer the B-side to the A-side anyway, because it was usually a little bit more interesting. It was a bit deeper, just different things going on, whereas the A-side is usually like the bigger dance floor track or the more well-known track on many releases. Right. So it's being industrious as well. So when you look at the history of the music, all of these leaps and bounds and like incredible movements that have happened is people using what they have where they are. And I think there could be a lot more of that now, but also I have to give props to the younger generations, because they are trying to do things in their own way, how they can and where they can. It would be nice to see more events, like more individual or crew promoters popping up with independent events, because it feels like kind of segueing now a little bit, but I will come back. There's a lot of not a lot, but there's like a few bigger promoters who are kind of hoovering up all the events at the moment, so that there's definitely room for more independent small crews starting as promoters. I definitely empathize with the fact that there is way too much music to ever listen to. Check out way too many artists, but also I think there needs to be more effort put into the music that people are selecting. There's so much music that's not being given any attention, that deserves more attention, more plays. There's so much incredible music being made, especially in the last 2 to 4 years. I don't know, maybe it's just the ease of get a controller, where do I get tunes from? I just download them from here. People kind of just go for the bangers because they've heard so and so play this and they saw that it got a good reaction, right? Rather than truly thinking about like who they are as a person, who they are artistically, and what represents them, like what sounds, what styles.
Checking out previous interviews with you, including one that I actually read from like 2004. This is a very multi-layered point I'm going to bring up. The digital revolution, I think, has really sort of pushed drum and bass and dance music in general into an area where it operates very much like the mainstream music industry. I think that, obviously there's all this music that's not getting listened to. And even when it does, its shelf life, quote unquote, is just really, really short. And people check out immediately. And I think that's not just a drum and bass phenomenon, although that's always been one of drum and bass's downfalls, just because of like the dubplate culture aspect of the music and the focus on innovation and newness. But
if I can just jump in there are way fewer anthems now, though. If you look at how many tunes from years ago that are still played now, and how many younger people are playing old school rather than new music, that shows you, well, I don't know what it shows you, but it just shows that there aren't as many, or people aren't given a chance to music made now in present day to become those classics.
I want to piggyback on that a little bit, in the sense that there's not as many anthems being made, and obviously the music has become very disposable in a lot of ways, especially with, I don't want to slag particular subgenres, but you do have subgenres that are much more simplistic, and you have a lot of samey type of music where people kind of filter through it, and a lot of the DJs tend to mix so fast that you might hear a tune for 30 to 60 seconds before they're into the next one. All that to say that a lot of the way DJing and dance music has evolved, and in particular the way drum and bass is affected, is it's removed a lot of the sound system culture aspects from drum and bass. Obviously it doesn't take a genius to figure out that the music has been quite whitewashed in a lot of ways. Who participates, who makes the music. And I think there's a conversation to be had, basically, that a lot of these quote-unquote innovations have enabled the blackness to be taken out of the music in general, not just sound-wise, but also in the approach the music has been taken so far out of its roots that the fact that we look at people making a conscious effort to connect with those roots again, we look at it as a niche thing.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that.
I'm thinking out loud. That's why it doesn't sound very coherent. There was
I mean, the whitewashing of the music and the scene and the culture, scene in quotation marks, has been going on for a long time, a very long time, over 20 years. I guess you can even say probably from the late 90s or even before that, when people stopped using the term jungle.
Right.
That's when it started.
Yeah, it was actually considered like a pejorative for a lot of people. They were like, "Oh, how dare you call it jungle?"
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember being at college. There was a girl in my class, and I remember. I can't even remember what we were talking about, but she was really into like progression sessions and Bookham and the real atmospheric side of things. This must have been like probably quite near the beginning of us starting the course. And just people getting to know each other. Oh, what music to listen to? And I was like, oh, jungle. She's like, oh, jungle's shit. It's all about drum and bass now. And I was like, okay. I think a lot of people allowed the media to start that process, society as well. So you had like politicians coming down on the music. You had the tabloid newspapers coming down on the music. You had police clamping down on events where there were going to be too many black artists, too many black people in attendance. That kind of... It started with jungle, but it really accelerated in the very early stages of grime. So when garage was kind of morphing into grime and you had Soulside and people like that, they were the ones who really felt the brunt of that. And that's when Form 696 was brought in, which was literally, if somebody wanted to put on an event and hire a venue, they would have to, if they were black in particular, or they had a black crowd, they would have to fill out this form, and then the council could say yes or no, whether you were allowed to have that event. And on this form, you had to fill out every person who was performing and working that night and put their address and phone number and details. It happened to Clayton, who ran Renegade Hardware, actually, and Trouble on Vinyl. I remember him asking for my details for this form that you had to fill out before he could even put an event on. So yeah, I mean, that aspect has been there for a long time. And there's history in that, just in terms of how black people have been treated here in the UK for decades. Well, centuries, but looking at more recent times with the Windrush and people coming over during that period of time. My dad and grandmother being two of those people. My dad tried to get him numerous clubs when he was like teenage, early 20s, and him and his friends weren't allowed in because they were black. So yeah, there's definitely form for that. But I think moving to where we are today, I guess what we've seen the last 2 to 3 years, where drum and bass has become huge, and we've reached this real, like you say, pop and bass period. We saw that in the second half of the noughties as well, with what Fresh was doing and reaching number one and people like that. But now it just feels like it's on steroids, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I think there are still just about enough people around keeping the roots and the original flavours going. But I also think that the reclaiming and the reuse of the term jungle, where it's become more to the forefront, from what I'm seeing in pictures and when I go out and when I'm playing out, the events are still getting whitewashed again. Well, me personally, I haven't noticed as many black people going out to the more jungly types of events. It's probably part and parcel, hand in hand with we're pretty much in a recession globally. Generally, people have less money for the luxuries, for going out, for going to festivals, for going away, even though it shouldn't be classed as a luxury, going out and enjoying yourself. But that's what it's become. Yeah, I just kind of explained that in a bit of a convoluted way, but hopefully people understand.
Well, it's okay. I asked you in a completely convoluted way, so it's, it's quite all right.
I think the whitewashing is ever present. It's been there for a long time, but I also think that we're seeing a white lash, which I don't know how many listeners will know that term, but we're seeing a white lash since George Floyd was murdered and the resurgence of Black Lives Matter. People were okay for a while. They were like, oh my God, I haven't been doing enough. I'm going to use all of these Soundclash samples to make up for the fact that I've never worked with any black artists, or like I've helped erase all of the roots, blah blah blah. Oh, let me sample this black R&B really huge classic from the 90s, even though it's been sampled a million times, because I need some blackness in my music. And we're seeing it even more now with lineups. There are so many all-white lineups out there. There are so many events that only have white women on them. I actually sort of posted it on my stories in response to somebody else the other day, that black women are disappearing faster from UK drum and bass lineups than they were booked for them to begin with.
Yeah, I said when I interviewed Sharona Knight a couple of years ago, I said to her, the rise of women in drum and bass has been the rise of white women in drum and bass, and which she gave a knowing laugh. Yeah, you're right, white lash. I've never heard the term before, but it makes perfect sense. I think it reflects probably a very white tendency. I think just because we tend to wear blinders. So we don't need to think about these things all the time, and I think it's like, I don't really. If I don't need to think about this uncomfortable thing, I don't have to. We're used to doing that, and I think that the focus has really fallen off, especially since the hospital records kerfuffle. Like people react aggressively, antagonistically to being reminded about fairness. Which is strange, and I think we're seeing that it's manifested itself a lot, obviously, in modern politics as well. Donald Trump was reelected, and I think because of exactly what that word white lash entails. Exactly. It's like a backlash to fairness and kindness. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah, it's strange as well because people talk about leave politics out of music. It's supposed to bring everyone together, but everything we do as people, as humans, the way we live our lives is a reflection of what is done to us. So we've got all these politicians making these decisions on our behalf. Most of the time they don't listen to us at all. They don't listen to what the people want and need generally. So like you say, Donald Trump was elected. It was the same with Boris Johnson here in the UK. First he became London mayor because people thought he was funny. There's nothing remotely funny about him whatsoever. He was London mayor for at least 2 terms. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3. Then he became prime minister, and it's like he puts on this like bumbling buffoon act, but he knows exactly what he's doing. He's a horrible out and out racist, and it's this backlash. We're seeing it with Reform UK as well, gaining in polls and gaining so much support. Nigel Farage has obviously been to the US a lot. Is trying to become best buddies with Donald Trump. We're seeing this huge white lash or a backlash against a little bit of progress that was kind of made in the last 4 to 8 years. And that's trickling down into music as well. Like we can't get away from that. And if people think that music is this utopia, it could be, but unfortunately it's not. There aren't enough people around who are willing to be a little bit uncomfortable for a little while to make sure that it's better for everybody.
Well, again, I think that reflects the reality that music, that a lot of people want to ignore, that music is inherently a socio-political artistic movement. It has to be, because the people that are the ones that really move the music continue to be Black and queer populations. And that music continues to be born out of some form of struggle that people don't really want to understand. And like you bring up, music could be it could be a utopia. Yes, I think realistically, I don't think it ever will be. I think people want to treat it that way, but the fact is like people find commonality in music, and generally speaking, it ends up being people like-minded people finding a way to a particular form of music. So it ends up becoming a bit of an echo chamber. So if you look at people who are stands of the Liquidity hospital sound and stuff like that, you'll frequently see them leaving comments like, leave politics and race out of music and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's very I don't see color kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah. That's down to those platforms not doing what they should have been doing with the music and the power they generated from that, and from the early support of the black DJs and artists who helped support them in the early days, and then it wasn't reciprocated. I've spoken about this with Julia Toppin as well. Like, you can see it with so many people. I'm not going to start naming names and labels and stuff and platforms, but there are a good few really big names out there who just did not do what they should have done regarding representation and how they present this music to the masses. And that's why we end up with all of these comments and people saying, yeah, keep politics out of music. Music has no colour, blah blah blah, all of that crap. But also bringing it back to sound system culture. When I was making the Windrush Stories podcast, and in season 2 I spoke to Mark Mack, 4Hero Manix, and had an amazing conversation. It was one of my favourite episodes, and he shared quite a lot that he'd never spoken about publicly before. But I asked him right towards the end, do you think if history and current times were different for black people, I asked him if he thought music and art would have progressed the way it did and the way it has.
And how did he respond to that?
Well, he let out a deep sigh at first. And he said no, he doesn't think it would have. So kind of coming back to what you were saying about, and it's what I said earlier as well, like, people have to kind of work with a large amount of ingenuity. They have to be industrious, doing what they can with what they have where they are. So with sound system culture, the early sound dances, they happened because, like I said, my dad and his friends, all of that generation, some slightly older, they couldn't get into your standard bar or club on your local high street.
I remember you saying in that interview, actually, you used to go to a club that your dad used to get denied entry to.
Yeah, that's where I first used to go to an under-18s hardcore rave event on a Sunday, Sunday afternoon into evening, and that was the same. It was called Ritzy when I was going, and it was called the Cat's Whiskers when my dad wasn't allowed in the, I guess, early to mid-70s. Yeah, so people started hiring their local community centre and keeping dances for their local community, friends, family, having blues parties because they needed somewhere to just be themselves and listen to the music that wasn't being played on any radio stations then at the time. There was just no support for anything that was black, that was West Indian. Obviously it started becoming more popular over the years. Sound systems were at Carnival started becoming more popular. And this is what a lot of people aren't realising. And every interview I give, I always say, I even said it on the RA podcast last year, I really wish people would spend time to sit down and learn more about what sound system culture actually is. Because it's almost like a faith as well. Like, people that go to Channel 1 all the time, people that used to go to Shaka dances all the time, people that follow Abashanti, all of these different sounds, people that followed Coxsone. It was almost like a religious experience, and that's what carried over into rave and then jungle, because it's people coming together who are seen as outcasts or just not allowed into general society. So they're like, okay, we'll make our thing over here then. And a lot of the time, some people who are around now who like to deny the fact that music is political, that art is political, they're the people that we were all trying to run away from years ago. And when I say we, I mean my West Indian forebears, my dad, his friends, all the original sound guys and women. They're the ones who they were trying to get away from. So yeah, I really wish people would take more time to kind of learn all the ins and outs. And there's so much incredible music attached to that. But even it reminds me of something that Mala Digital Mystics posted. I can't remember where it was from. It was from a slightly older interview he gave, and it was sound music and meditating on bass weight, it's where people can just be, and this is why these spaces were created. So that's why they created DMZ as well, following in the tradition. We're not allowed over there, you're not letting us in here, so we're going to make our thing here.
And then people migrate to it because that's the cool new thing.
Yeah, but they're not understanding why it was made in the first place, and they're not respecting the space itself.
There's so many people that don't even know what a sound system actually is.
Yeah,
they think they have an idea, but they don't actually know.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got people using the term willy-nilly, throwing it around. I'm just like, oh, please.
Right.
This is culture. This is what people have made with their bare hands. And you're just using the term and sampling all these just sound clashes that you probably don't even understand all of what they're saying and talking about in it. Just because it sounds cool. It's not your culture or heritage. Like, you have to respect it like you would respect another person's.
One of the reasons I have been begging you for an interview for years, I feel like, is for a long time the Next Chapter was kind of the epitome of what a drum and bass show should be for me.
Thank you. Very kind.
You're welcome. But it was one of those situations where it was a combination of the fact that most of the music that you play happens to be like up my alley in terms of my personal drum and bass preferences, but also the fact that a lot of mixed shows had a very kind of ravey atmosphere. So you might have like, live mixing, you might have an MC there, blah, 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 that kind of thing, which is great. But I always wanted a home listening experience when it came to the show. There's a couple of tapes I had of your old One Extra show back in the day, and I remember hearing those, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." And her voice is great. Like, I don't know if I don't think you get enough recognition for your voice, but you've got a great radio voice. It's even. It's got
I've got
like
a face for radio.
You got a great face too, but your voice in general is like I don't know. It's kind of. It's kind of not like your typical like commercial radio voice.
Oh yeah,
it's even it reflects a certain passion in the music. You've never been really afraid to talk. I don't want to say intellectually about the music, but like talk passionately without sounding contrived.
Yeah.
And then when you do talk to people, that are very interesting, and you ask interesting questions. So this leads me into not just Flight as the DJ, but Flight as the presenter and host. I don't think a lot of people realize that you have a tremendous broadcast history in drum bass. The Next Chapter has taken on a number of different forms. One of my favorites being actually when you were doing it as a podcast for a while.
All right, okay.
How do you see, I don't know, your legacy as a broadcaster now that you've been doing it for quite a while?
I don't know. It's a strange one to me, because I guess it's only been in later years, more recent years, that I've kind of recognised just how much of me and what I do and what I've done has been radio. So I started on pirate radio after mixing for only 3 or 4 months. I think it was like 3 months I'd been mixing for. So, like, no time at all. But where I was working in the record shop, met some people, became friends with them. One guy who Due Diligence, he was called Reflex back then. And he was managing because they had Garage during the week on Flex FM, and then Jungle and D&B at the weekends, and he was managing, I think, the nighttime shows. And so he invited me up, and we just went up there. I was crapping myself, though, like, was really nervous. He said, "Don't worry, it's literally just like mixing in someone's bedroom." And it was. The first time I think we were mixing just on a table in someone's living room, and a dog like floating around. Yeah, so I've done many forms of radio. I've done pirate stations, I've done community stations, I've done national radio at the BBC, obviously. I've done internet radio. I've worked as a radio producer. I've helped out as a broadcast assistant at Rinse FM. I've produced podcasts. I made, with the help of a large team, made the documentary for BBC, Turn It Up. So yeah, it's like a hell of a lot of radio. You see like more ravers talking about it, people that go out, people that love the music, rather than, I think, industry people that work in the music. Just how important radio has been for this music. And I think sometimes outside the UK it's quite difficult for people to fully comprehend the importance of radio, because, for example, in the USA they've never really had pirate radio like we had it in the UK.
Correct.
Like, so radio shows have never really been a thing. That kind of influences how people view others as well, how they would potentially view artists. It's like, okay, so Flight's done radio, that doesn't really mean anything to me because I can't listen to her show, I haven't listened to it, like I'm not really into drum and bass because of radio. I found it on the internet or playing whatever game, you know. In the UK it has much more relevance and much more stature, like way bigger stature than say other forms of like coming across the music. For my legacy, I don't know, I just hope that I've always stayed true to playing the best music that I come across, and I've tried to carry through, well, I know I've carried through to today, supporting new artists, new people coming through, new DJs, women. I can't really talk about it much more than that because like I would need to, I'm not really a third person type person, but I hope that that's my legacy and that people respect that. I think when you're saying just about people's respect for things as well, or how they view me, I think One Extra in general also doesn't get enough credit for when we had like at least 4 of us. When we were broadcasting 11 hours of drum and bass every week, that doesn't get anywhere near enough respect or credit because we helped change things. No other legal station, national station, has supported drum and bass as much as One Extra did at that time, and that was partially due to the executive producers who were there at the time. Wilberforce was one of them. He was instrumental in Kiss FM and getting Fab and Groove and Hype, and yeah, he was like one of the execs at Kiss FM and made it what it was. A guy called Ray Paul, who runs Playmaker Group now, he actually goes out on the road and manages the Fab and Groove with the Outlook Orchestra. I've seen him at all of those gigs that I've been to. So it's people that are still kind of involved in the music, but because of their age and when they grew up and how they've seen UK culture and music evolve, they knew that it was right to plough all of this energy and money into drum and bass at that time. And I guess it's only until recently with Rince's acquisition of Cool, and now we've got like a 24/7 drum and bass station that is legal, it's got an Ofcom license, there's been as much support for drum and bass on the radio in the UK.
In North America, we never had pirates. Pirate radio was a very scattered thing. It was not something that was commonly found. The Marcus Visionary, who founded this show, he actually started on university radio because it was the closest thing that there was to pirate radio, because there wasn't corporate radio, and you know, people who had shows on university radio could literally do whatever they want. So that's, you know, Toronto at one point had a very lively drum and bass radio presence. There was like, I think 5 or 6 shows running on a couple of different stations and stuff like that. So I think locally in Toronto, there's a bit more appreciation for it. But yeah, in the United States, I think there are only 1 or 2 purely radio shows for drum and bass left. And I think there's only a couple in Canada, where everything else seems to be internet based. I think for a lot of DJs, maybe the shows are sort of like another way to keep their name out there.
Definitely.
As a promotional vehicle.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great way, and it was even when I started, like that's why so many people gravitated towards pirate radio. It's a great way to establish yourself and start building a following. And I did literally start building a following through pirate radio. So then when my kind of bigger break started happening, so starting to play for Metalheads in 99, people already knew who I was. I was playing out in London quite a bit, going outside of London sometimes. But yeah, then the Metalheads co-signed, that helped things more. And then with the One Extra, my next big break, that just took things even further. And so I became like properly globally known rather than just UK, maybe a little bit of Europe. But yeah, going back to what you were just saying about university radio, I've heard people say that that's how they came across For Hero, for example. Hearing people play tunes from their albums like Creating Patterns or Jacob's Optical Stairway and things like that. But also with Toronto, there's been a strong West Indian community there as well. So that's why it's been quite similar to London and other big cities in the UK because of the West Indian presence and sound and reggae.
That's a huge part of why that is. And what's interesting is I'm from the States. I'm from Buffalo, which is on the border. Right. But American drum and bass really evolved in a different way because it evolved more from, I think, the sort of futurist elements of jungle and drum and bass. A lot of people discovered it through Goldie and Bookham. You know, early neurofunk, tech step, that kind of stuff really took hold in the States very early on. And it had just a different evolution than it was in Toronto. Toronto had a very large jungle scene, very big raves. It was a very different feel on the radio and stuff like that. Being in Buffalo, you kind of had the best of both worlds. But as a radio host, when did you start taking a more
serious approach?
Well, I don't want to say serious approach. I want to say purpose-driven. I'll say, when did you start taking a more purpose-driven approach to, let's say, what you selected to play, as opposed to just getting out there and being a DJ and stuff like that? When did you start kind of saying, okay, you know what, this is going to be a way for me to showcase some under-recognized artists, etc., etc.?
I think I've always been that way, to be honest. Even from like finding my feet and in style-wise on Pirate, like I would always play things, tunes, artists, labels that not many other people were playing on radio. Fracture has told me that before. Like, he and Neptune used to listen to me regularly on Rinse FM, and he said that I was just playing loads of stuff that they hadn't heard before, or playing things in a slightly different way to like a lot of other people. I guess at that time I would have stood out quite a bit. I mean, for a long time I was the only woman on the station as well, like in different eras when I've played on Rinse FM. Elijah from Butters, Elijah and Skilliam and the Yellow Squares, he told me last year or the year before that a lot of people couldn't believe it when he told them when he joined Rinse. So this is in like the noughties, maybe the second half of the noughties. I was the only woman on the station again then. But then things started changing a lot, and Josie Rebel and other people came on. When I started Pirate, I would never host my own show. I still don't particularly like the sound of my own voice, but I've got used to it in my decades on Earth. Yeah, I really hated the sound of my own voice. I was super shy, introverted. I just felt like I didn't need to speak on the mic. If there was an MC, they could do it, because that's their job. They're good at hosting, and I would just play music. And if there was no MC, then people would just have like an hour and a half or 2 hours of tunes. I remember the first time I ever had to get on the mic, that's because Due Diligence, Frank had gone downstairs to let somebody in, and someone called up for a rewind, and I was like, oh God. I was like, no, I can't do that. I said, oh, no one's here at the moment. He was like, you're answering the phone. He's like, oh, this tune's so sweet, blah, blah, blah. I can remember what tune it was as well. It was the Hidden Agenda remix of King Kuba. And so I like really shakily picked the mic up and turned it on and gave him his shout and did a rewind. Felt sick afterwards. And then it wasn't until I got the One Extra show and realised that I would have to host it myself every week that it kind of sunk in. I was like, oh my God, I need to take this a bit more seriously then. I need to kind of keep my wits about me. But musically, I've always been the same, I think. And then I will say as well, getting the job with Prism Radio, first as like a broadcast assistant and then developing into a producer, that really changed things for me as well. Because obviously working as a producer, you're the other side of the desk and you're doing everything, even though we worked a little differently at One Extra in the early days, because they wanted it to be like a Pirate but with BBC budget. That's what they told everybody. Yeah, it's like a Pirate station but with BBC budget behind them, BBC money. But yeah, working as a producer, I kind of learned a lot more about what producers actually do in terms of research, suggesting guests to the presenters, but obviously I was working with people in prison rather than people outside. Researching scripts, editing, driving the desk in the studio, recording, all that kind of stuff. So it allowed me to develop more of who I am as a presenter, and I think it did me the world of good in that respect. Because before, I mean, at One Extra, like, I remember Ray saying, oh, there's courses that we can send you on and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm interested. I'm just enjoying doing things as they are. But a part of me wishes that I had gone on the courses back then, because it may have sped things up a little bit or allowed me to go in different directions, maybe. I never wanted to be like a mainstream presenter. I never wanted to be on TV. None of that. Like, as time went on, we could see that they were starting to mould One Extra into being like a mini Radio 1. So like Radio 1, but for black people, or with black people sent in instead. Just a bit more mainstream sounding, very polished. People that are really happy and jovial and extra all the time. And that was never my thing. It was always about the music first.
So tell us how you got to the point where you were able to produce Windrush Stories and Turn It Up. How did those things come about?
Windrush Stories, we literally at Prism Radio applied for some funding and won it. So yeah, once a year they would get all the employees together and we'd have a day off-site. You know, like just in most places of employment, you have training days every so often. And then one day we had one where we were just kind of generating ideas and stuff. And I thought of one that I would like to call Granny, Aki and Me. And it would be a series where a younger person of a family is with an elder in their kitchen talking about life as the elder prepares their favourite meal from home. Quite simple, but they could talk about what ingredients they've got, where they come from, and just talking about life, basically. And so I made series 1 during the first COVID lockdown, which was really stressful. And yeah, recorded 12 brand new episodes and made an hour-long documentary out of that as well. Then series 2 came, again, won some funding. And then series 3, which is only 4 episodes, was actually Hackney Council in collaboration with an art foundation actually approached us and said that they would like to pay us or me to make some new episodes, but focusing on Hackney, the London Borough of Hackney. So that was cool. Spoke to Cleveland Watkis and some other people. Yeah, I'm really overdue to make some new ones, but because I don't work at PRA anymore, although I did speak to one of my old bosses by text quite recently, and he said if I ever want to add to the 3 seasons, then just let him know and he'll see what funding pots are open.
And how did Turn It Up come about?
So that was quite interesting, actually, because it was when I'd arranged for my first year of sabbatical. Going back to me saying, off the back of the COVID lockdowns, my gigs really took off. I was playing every weekend, travelling a lot, but I was still working full-time at that time as well, largely working from home. Yeah, then my dad passed at the end of 2021. So it's really weird, like each season I've made of Windrush Stories, there's been other really difficult things happening. And after that, it just got to the point where I thought if I don't stop and slow down, I'm going to have a breakdown. Mm-hmm. And the most obvious thing to cut back on, I thought, and which was the case, was the full-time job. So I requested a sabbatical. Yeah, they were like, yeah, totally understanding, signed me off for a year. And it was when I'd arranged that an email came in to EQ50 from a guy at Cup and Nuzzle, the production company I worked with, saying, we're looking for a producer to make this cool drum and bass series that we're making. And I was like, huh? I was thinking, I could suggest this person and that person, blah, blah, blah. Then I thought to myself, hold on a second, but I'm a radio producer. I could make this. I know the music. I know everyone. Right. So I can suggest some people, but I'd also like to put forward myself. And met up with them and they were like, yeah, we want you to do it. You can produce and narrate. But so how we work in prisons making radio is different to how it's done at like the BBC, some very obvious reasons. Yeah, so it was a really steep and huge learning curve, but I'm really proud of what we made, because I think if someone else had taken it on, if I'd suggested somebody else, there would have been quite a few voices that are in it that wouldn't have been featured. Mm-hmm. So basically, it wasn't mine from start to finish. They already had the overview for the 6 episodes, So I kind of had to stick to the time frame and the overall view for each episode, but I could also kind of put who I wanted in it and who I had access to and who had time to speak to me. So yeah, I had to really put my foot down on some of the things, but like the team at Cup and Nuzzle were really amazing. Helped me with a lot of stuff that I hadn't known before working on this doc, just like behind the scenes. So I arranged all the interviews, I recorded all the interviews myself, helped with art direction for the artwork, the poster, obviously narrated it, wrote some of the episodes, but there was a script editor, a guy called Frank, who'd made a techno documentary voiced by Ash Lauren, like just before we were working on this. So yeah, it was a huge team effort, but even though there were some things that had to be left out due to time constraints, which I'm still a little bit about. I wish that was in there, but I'm really proud of the job in general. I think it's a good representation of the music, how it should be represented.
Yeah, it definitely seemed really like a good counterpoint to the Drum and Bass Arena documentary that came out at a similar time.
I think with the Drum and Bass Arena one, they kind of shot themselves in the foot though with what they called it. Because I remember my interview for that I filmed in 2016. I'd just come back from Sun and Bass, and I think I was maybe one of the last people they interviewed for it. And then it wasn't released until 2020, so even though what they've included of me talking about was still very much relevant, and still is up to a point, it was still like a long time period in between them first recording all the interviews and then actually putting it out. But yeah, it was supposed to be a history of drum and bass, but like from when Drum and Bass Arena started. So I guess that's what I put the timeline graphics in there, but the title didn't match the content. But it was a well-made documentary. It
looked and sounded amazing. It just
Join us at CIUT Studio 2 every week for our live music series. Tune in to hear performances from established favorites and up-and-coming hidden gems alongside exclusive interviews. Next week we'll be joined by Sikura St. Lawrence, a Toronto-based ensemble of Chilean and Peruvian musicians that blends traditional rhythms, virtuosic instrumental solos, and original compositions to create a captivating experience. Next Tuesday from 3 to 4. See you then.
From the roots up, CIUT 89.5 FM, Toronto.
Greetings, welcome to the Mix Sessions here on CIUT 89.5, and I've got a loaded, deep, dark, heavy, moody show for you tonight on the real techno side of the dub techno. So if that's your jam, then keep it locked. Going to be sliding right into it. Too many tracks to play. We're going to be kicking off with Slow Learners, Augie Song. You're on CIUT 89.5.